Hey there folks, and welcome back to the Babish Cook Along. My name is Andrew Ray, aka Babish, and this is my new show where I prepare a dish front to back in real time. This is a show to put on in the background or while you go to sleep, or my favorite, to put on and actually cook along with me. The written recipe for this episode is going to be in the video description, but if you want gear lists, shopping lists, and full access to the library of BCU recipes, head to babi.sh, that's babi.sh, and sign up today. It's $10 a year, which is less than $1 a month. There's a really great, robust community. We've got over 25,000 subscribers there now. Everybody's posting pictures of their recreations. I pop in and give my 2 cents. It's a really great place to hang out and cook, so I hope you go check it out. But either way, this is a very relaxed, chill show. We have volume limiters on all the microphones, so there's nothing too loud or clangy or bangy that's going to wake you up from a sound sleep. And I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you hang out, and I hope you do some cooking with me. So today, I'm going to introduce a new feature, which is I'm going to listen to some music. These guys are on transparency, so I can still hear everything. We obviously can't just play my tunes because we'd get in trouble. But if you also check in the video description, you will see a link to a Spotify playlist, the Spotify playlist that I'm listening to. It's called Steak Sandwiches Cook Along. That's what we're making today. Sorry, spoilers. And if you want to sync up, here we go. I've got the playlist open. 3, 2, 1, go. And today, I'm not going to talk about the music too much because I don't want to, if you're not listening to it, you can listen to your own tunes, you can listen to no music. If you're listening to what I'm listening to, this is a band called Mammal Hands. I would call it laser-guided precision jazz. And it's this very, it's the music I put on when I need to get in the zone. So it's like, it makes me feel like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. All the numbers and equations fly past me. And it's great for just locking in. So I hope you enjoy it. And as I said, by giving away the name of the playlist, today we're making steak sandwiches. Specifically this steak sandwich that I drew in my journal. This is not something I normally do. But let me walk you through the anatomy here. I've been craving a steak sandwich for quite a while. I had a particularly great one that this one is kind of inspired by. I'll tell you about that later. But here, we'll go to the close-up cam to walk you through the anatomy here. So I was thinking baguette top and bottom. I've since found some better bread that I think I'm going to use, but I also have a baguette just in case. I'm thinking Gruyere for cheese, but I also have smoked Gouda that I think could be really good. Fried crispy shallots, the same that Kenji Lopez Alt uses to make his green bean casserole. It's basically just low temperature, slow fried, shallow fried shallots that become like homemade French's onions. Then we have the steak, which in this case is a ribeye. You could use virtually any cut of beef to make a good steak sandwich. I'll explain more on that later, but because I want this to be like a steakhouse sandwich, we're going to use ribeye. Then below that, you'll see some creamed spinach. This is the really exciting part about this sandwich. I had a steak sandwich up in Narrowsburg, New York, near the Bed and Babish at a place called the Blue Heron. Amazing, amazing sort of like New American elevated pub stuff. And they did not a steak sandwich, but like a French dip with creamed spinach on it, almost as a condiment, which is inspired. Like, it works so well. It's creamy, it's spinachy, it's garlicky, it's cheesy. It's perfect for putting on a sandwich. So that's what's gonna make this more of like a steakhouse sandwich. Then I'm gonna do some pickled chilies. That's really more inspired by like all the steak sandwiches I've been seeing on TikTok. I went on a steak sandwich TikTok tear. And I think on half of his sandwiches, Owen Hahn will put some pickled chilies down. So I'm going to do that. I have some nice Fresnos that I'm going to quick pickle with some honey. And then, of course, the bottom of the sandwich. And I'm going to roast some garlic, too. I don't even know what I'm going to use it for, but I'll use it for something. So Where do we start? We're jumping right into it today. No 7-minute long intros and life stories. We're getting right into cooking. Where do we start? Well, it's the steak. This whole process should hopefully take like an hour and a half. So this is where we're gonna start because this guy needs anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours to hang out because we're gonna dry brine him. I'm gonna turn down this music a little bit. It's distracting me. So, dry brining is exactly what it sounds like. Basically, you're just generously coating the outside of the steak. More generously, the thicker it is. This is pretty thick. I'd say it's like 1.25 inches. So the thicker it is, the more you can just like pack it with salt. I'm gonna just generously sprinkle it. I'm gonna hit it with some pepper too. A lot of people say that, you know, not to put pepper on a steak before cooking it because then the pepper will burn, but I guess I like the taste of burnt pepper because it tastes really good to me. You end up toasting the peppercorns and getting a lot more flavor out of them. Yes, of course they burn, but some burnt foods are good. Burnt tomatoes. Francis Mallman, I believe, is the chef who really specializes in burnt food, and I've had his burnt tomatoes, and they are a killer. So now, oh, pepper. Almost forgot the pepper on this side. Now, why are we doing this? Because, well, a few reasons. First off, the salt is going to deeply flavor the steak. The salt is going to penetrate into the meat, and instead of just having seasoning on the outside of the meat, it's going to be within the meat. But even more importantly, what's going to happen is over the next 40 minutes, moisture is going to be drawn out of the steak by the salt. So in about, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes, the surface of the steak is going to look pretty wet. And that moisture is then going to be reabsorbed back into the steak, which is not only, again, going to season it, it's going to help break down the muscle fibers and help the steak retain moisture, and it's going to make it more tender. So it is general best practice, anytime you're making almost any kind of steak, dry brine it beforehand. You want to do at least 40 minutes at room temperature, up to like 2 hours. And if you can, overnight in the fridge, preferably uncovered, so that way you're desiccating the outside of the steak, you're drying it out, which is going to help you get a better crust. Moisture is your enemy when it comes to forming a crust on steak. That's also an important reason why you need to let it go for at least 40 minutes, because, like I said, this is going to get wet on the outside, and then it's going to get reabsorbed. So this guy's going to hang out for the duration of our cook. I think I'm a little better prepared for this episode. Last time I was just running and grabbing the tools that I needed and trying to, you know, truly make things from scratch, but that ended up with a lot of dead space and a lot of me running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So I don't have my mise done, but I do have my stuff allocated and put here. So the next thing we need to work on is, well, let's roast some garlic too, because this is also going to take about an hour. Like I said, I don't even know what I'm going to use this for yet, but I do know that there's no way it's not going to be good with a steak sandwich. Roasted garlic is one of life's great and very simple pleasures. It's very easy to make. So we're basically just taking a whole head of garlic and cutting off the top just enough so that all the cloves are exposed. Here, I'll show you that in a close-up. You can see that none of the cloves are hidden down below. We lost some garlic in doing so. You can hang on to these scraps and use them for something else. But we want all the cloves exposed, not only so that they can nicely brown, but so that we can lightly season them. Another very important tool to start things off with, garbage bowl, bench scraper. Makes cleanup truly a breeze. So now I've got the head of garlic here on a little piece of tin foil, aluminum foil. I don't know why it used to be called, it used to be made of tin? Is that why people call it that? And I'm going to drizzle this with some olive oil. I love Graza. I really love them because they're so consumer friendly. They're expensive, but like there's no ambiguity about what this olive oil is for. They say, don't use this to cook. This is finishing oil. And brilliant marketing. This is called drizzle, and then the one that you cook with is called sizzle. Come on, like, shut up and take my money. So I'm gonna hit that with a little bit of olive oil. It's gonna help browning, it's gonna deepen flavor. I'm gonna season a little bit with salt, kosher salt, freshly ground pepper. There we go. Now I'm just gonna wrap it up nice and tight. Folding up so that way like no oil can leak. I can put this straight in the oven now and no oil is going to leak out of it because I folded everything up. There are no gaps on the bottom for anything to leak out. So this guy's going to go straight in the oven. I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And it goes, and that's going to take about an hour. So that's going to be done hopefully just about when our sandwich is ready to assemble. And we'll see what I do with it. Hopefully the camera movement is a little less jarring this week. I adjusted. This is Rover, for, again, if this is your first time with this show, I'm the only one here. It's just you and me. There's no crew, there's no friends or family. It's just you, me, and the RoboCam, who I've come to call Rover and have come to care about very deeply. And I've turned down Rover's sensitivity, so he shouldn't be, I mean, he's tracking me, but he's not like jerking around when I move my head side to side. I hope. I couldn't see just then because I was jerking my head side to side. And also just to answer some questions for people that were wondering, this is not to replace or supplant anybody here at the BCU. Everybody has a very full plate, pun intended. And this show is a lot easier to produce and finish. So it's a very fun way for me to get into some mindfulness in the kitchen and be very intentional and very focused and very non-performative. In a way that I can't really with anybody else around. So that's why we have this robo camera set up, all these 5 cameras, and that's what's going on. It's Friday, I'm gonna make a steak sandwich. Next up, I'm gonna make those pickled chilies. So, need a couple things for that. See, as you can see, I got my stuff and I put it over here, close by. So I don't have to run over there and you guys have to be like, okay, well, guess he'll be back when he's back. What I have here are some Fresno chilies, which I'm probably about to erroneously say, I think are just ripened jalapeños. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna verify that because I don't feel like spreading misinformation, at least when I can help it. Okay, I guess they are of a different genus than jalapeños, so I'm glad that I looked that up so I didn't tell you the wrong thing just then. I just wanted a nice splash of color. I already have a lot of green in this sandwich, you know, cream spinach. So I wanted a nice splash of color with a splash of heat and some, you know, briny pickle bite. So that's why I'm gonna use these guys to make some quick pickled chilies. I'm gonna use gloves. Always a good idea when working with hot peppers, especially if you have reproductive organs that your hands might come in contact with later on for going to the bathroom or for fun. Either way, you don't want that residual capsaicin on your hands when you go to do so. So, I don't want these to be big chunkers. I don't want it to be a huge crunch in the bottom of the sandwich, so I'm gonna slice them pretty thin, but not like wafer thin. Yeah, that's what I'm going for right there. I'll show you on the close-up cam. If I can. Will it focus? There it is. Yeah, so you can see it's just, you know, not paper thin, but not, you know, super thick either. It'll have some body. Something I'm gonna try doing is talking a little bit less. That's one of the reasons I'm listening to music today, because I watched the last episode and I realized I was talking almost the entire time. So there's nothing wrong with that, but this time I want to, you know, focus on the food sounds a little bit and focus on the task at hand. And speaking of focus, something else I'm going to do, which I should have done at the beginning of the episode, but I'm going to do it now, a do not disturb mode. I hope that you join me in taking you know, an hour or so, however long this is going to take, for yourself. If you have that option, I encourage you, because I think sometimes we make ourselves too non-stop available, and it's exhausting. So if we just want to focus in on the food together, put that phone in Do Not Disturb. This guy's feeling, let's see. Oh, he was feeling past his prime, but it was feeling a little soft towards the top there. But a good indicator of whether or not chilies or peppers have gone bad or past their prime is when the seeds start to darken, start to turn brown or black. Turn black, I would probably just not use that chili. But this guy has, you know, nice fresh looking seeds, so it might just be a little wrinkly chili. There we go. So, these guys are ready for a quick pickling. I'm going to put them in a heat-proof bowl, because we're going to pour some hot stuff over them to quick pickle them. And I don't want them to be lonely in there, so they're going to be joined by a little bit of garlic. Oh, hey, let's use those, that's what we'll do. We'll use the chips from the head of garlic that we decapitated. I got these little pieces from that, so I'm going to grab those. Luckily, nothing too gross has gone in my trash bowl yet, so I can just grab these out. Boop. Waste not, want not. Am I right? There we go. And something funny that happens with garlic when you pickle it, particularly when you quick pickle it, is that it turns blue. Blue or purple. And it's off-putting, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's not going to make you sick or anything. It's just some weird chemical reaction that takes place. There we go. We got our garlic in there, and never hurts to have some oniony flavors. And there's going to be a lot of shallots being used in today's episode, so might as well get a start on it. Shallots are usually pretty tricky to peel because they're segmented sometimes. Like you can see this guy. There we go. This guy has like two kind of chambers. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. It's almost like two chambers in there, and if you just start slicing it, you're going to end up with it's effectively skin in your shallots. So I place a little cut down the side, peel off the outermost layer. Boom, this guy's ready to go. And I'm just going to cut off the base, and I'm going to slice it. I guess I'll just slice it lengthwise just to make it look cool. No other reason. There we go. One shallot. And never hurts to hit it with a little bit of salt. Now, to make the pickling liquid, excuse me, I'm going to use a mixture of apple cider vinegar and water. I got the good stuff here. Bragg. It's the one with the mother, I guess. It's good for you. I don't know. So I'm going to use about 50-50 apple cider vinegar and water. I need just enough to cover the chilies and the onions and stuff. So I think that's going to be the rest of my vinegar. So bye-bye, Bragg. If you guys think it's weird that I'm wearing headphones while I do this, let me know. It feels kind of strange to be talking while I don't know, it's something I don't do very often, but there we go. About 50-50 water and apple cider vinegar. And again, since we're quick pickling, we don't need to worry about like sanitizing or making things antimicrobial or anything like that. I'm just going to put a bunch of salt in here. Just probably that was like a tablespoon and a half's worth-ish. and a couple spices. I want to throw some coriander seed in there, which I want to put some right there on the stovetop, so that worked out perfectly. If you know me, you know that I don't like cilantro, but coriander seed's different. It doesn't bother me the same way, and it just has this nice light sort of fruity note, and that's going to be nice. And mustard seed, pretty standard for quick pickles, and it's also, you know, going to be really nice on the sandwich if any of them end up on there. Both of these will provide a nice little textural pop, which will be lovely. One more thing, we also need sweet. I'm going to use honey. This is some honey I picked up. I was in Florida last week. I want these to be pretty sweet. I almost want them to be like bread and butter style, so I probably just put a solid third of a cup of honey in there. So away that goes. I got this honey in Florida. I went there last week. I unfortunately have a family member that's having some health issues and need to go check in on, and I was on a warpath to get some honeybell oranges because I was there right at the end of the honeybell season. If you know what honeybells are, I think they're what they based Mackinac peaches off of on Seinfeld, where, you know, Kramer was obsessed with these Mackinac peaches that are only ripe for a month out of the year. And that's what honeybells are. They're only ripe for January and a little bit of February, I think. And they're oranges you have to drink. You can't eat them. They're so juicy. And there's barely any pith. When you get really good ones, it's just peel, and inside is just the most juice-laden orange you've ever seen in your life. And I managed to find, even though I was at the tail end of the season, I managed to find a fruit stand that had some. They're also selling this honey. It's Brazilian pepper bush honey, which is not a spicy plant. It's just a bush of some kind. And they had the bushes, especially the honeymakers, apiarists, whatever. The beekeepers, the beekeepers who made the honey had these bushes specially flown in or something, and you know, had these this hive of bees specifically feeding off that bush, and it's created this honey with a very unique flavor. He had me taste it like this, like it was drugs. Really, like, I don't even know what to say, just like a fruity flavor to it. Very different. It's crazy how much the pollen that's, not pollen, the nectar that bees are eating. I don't know anything about beekeeping. Clearly, I couldn't even remember the name for it. How much it affects the flavor. If you don't believe me, at most grocery stores, there's a variety of honeys available. Some of them are like blueberry honey, clover honey, all this stuff. Get some, try it. Very different, pronounced difference. Blueberry honey, which is not honey that has blueberries added, it's just the bees only have access to blueberry bushes. It tastes like blueberries. It's crazy. Light and fruity. So anyway, we got the pickling liquid. We're going to bring that up to a boil. Then as soon as it's boiled, we're going to mix it a little bit, make sure that it's well dissolved, and then we're going to pour it over this, let that sit for anywhere for at least like 20 minutes and up to, you know, forever. I don't know. You could pour them over and then immediately, you know, throw it in the fridge and just keep it in there as a sort of condiment. Quick pickling. It's again, it's not fully like shelf stable, sanitized the way real pickling is, but it's going to give you the same textures and flavors pretty much, which is pretty awesome. All right, so that's the chilies. And then the next thing we got to do is prep the shallots, and I'm going to get that started while that liquid comes up to the simmer. Not a simmer, the simmer. I'm going to save one of these shallots for my creamed spinach. The rest I'm going to turn into nice crunchy fried shallots. So same deal here, just going to peel these pretty quick. Try to keep them whole because I want these to be like little, you know, like French's onions. I want them to be like rings. Let's enjoy some of these food sounds for a little bit. Here's my center. a little too deep there. I really ripped that outside layer open. So now it's giving me the onion eyes because I ruptured so many cell walls, released so many of those fumes. Generally best practice to have an area for your peeled shallots because just like the garlic, just like we experienced last week, the paper skins will stick to anything. And if you get your nice clean onions too close to your detritus, it's going to, wow, my eyes are really going. Can you see that, Rover? Oh man, that got me. Whew, how embarrassing. That's simmering. I'm gonna give it a little stir, but I do wanna cook it for just a bit, both to reduce it and to make sure that everything's well dissolved. Might as well use some tiny whisk here. Didn't get any love in the first episode. All right, now to slice these shallots, you could just do it with a knife, of course, but I'm gonna use a mandolin just for the sake of uniformity and ease. It's just easier. It's obviously, you know, a little more dangerous if you really want to be safe. And maybe I will, because I'm not some trained professional, and I'm currently on camera. And if I bleed out, I don't want you to have to watch. You can get one of these, like, they're not cut-proof, but they're cut-resistant gloves, and this will save you from, you know, losing a fingertip. Let's do one test to see how thick it's cutting them. That looks good to me. You don't want them too thin, because they will burn if they're too thin. The other, yeah, that is another reason you might want to use a mandolin for this, is because uniformity is important. These guys, if you have different thicknesses, they'll cook at different rates, and you might have some starting to burn when others aren't yet done cooking. So let's give you a cooler angle to look at here. That's cooler, right? That's why I'm wearing a glove, because I'm over here doing this while I'm looking at a camera monitor. I'd say inadvisable, to say the least. Go. Yeah, that makes short work of shallots. It sure does. Now, the next thing we want to do is, oh man, my eyes. Next thing we want to do is kind of separate the rings a little bit. This will happen in the cooking process, but it's just going to help get them, again, all starting to cook from the same starting point. They're all going to be on the same level, instead of having some rings and then some whole onion cross sections that are taking longer to cook. Okay, real quick, we're gonna take a quick break on this because we need to get our pickles going, or our pickled chilies rather. Move those to the side. So here are our Fresno chilies, some small garlic clove slivers, and some thin sliced shallots. And let's do it so you can see what's going on. We're just going to pour this mixture right over top. Way overdid it. Didn't need to make that much, but whatever. Just might as well use it all. There we go. Now, cover these guys up. Well, let's give them a little mix first. Just make sure everybody's getting saturated and submerged. Beautiful. Cover them up with a plate, eco-friendly, and we're going to set these aside for at least 20 minutes, but letting them sit there for the entire time we're cooking, about an hour, is going to be ideal. So we'll get nice, well-pickled shallots, chilies, Fresno chilies. But yeah, this sandwich is inspired by that one that I had at the Blue Heron. So the Bed and Babish, if you're not familiar, is this foodie vacation rental that I've been working on for the better part of 3 years now. I'm never building a house again. That was a mistake. It was a mistake because I don't have the mind for it, and I also don't have the time, nor the patience, nor the bandwidth for it. It was prohibitive. Luckily, I worked with a very great team. It was mostly like supply chain issues. I bought the property in 2020 and started building in 2021. So as you can imagine, post-COVID, there was a lot of interruption. Anyway, it's almost done. It's finally almost done. And I will shut up. This part of the food doesn't make noise. So, yeah, I was there most recently to check in on construction. I don't know, I guess it was like a month and a half ago. And I went to the Blue Heron, a place that I've been to many, many times. And they had this special that was just killer. It was, again, they did it like a French dip. So it came with a little cup of jus, and it was just, thin sliced prime rib or whatever it was, beef that they put on there, and creamed spinach. And I was just so blown away by that I had never heard of that, and that I had never thought of that. But that's the cool thing about inspiration. Inspiration takes many forms, and we tend to think of inspiration as this thing that comes out of nowhere, this thing that sort of appears magically. But, then there's the other definition, is just inspired by. It's literally you are having experiences that inform what you make and what you do. It's kind of why, some people say that, I just copy Kenji or whatever, and I've already mentioned his name once in this episode because I'm using one of his techniques right now. But I'm inspired by Kenji. He taught me how to cook. And since I started making this channel, a lot of elements of my shows have been imitated. This angle right here, the across the table, we call this the Babish angle because I don't think I invented it, but I can't look at any other channels that were doing it first. And it's great because it's democratizing. This angle, makes it possible to independently produce a cooking show just by yourself. All you need is a table that you can shoot across. So I'm very proud of that people have taken to using it so they can make their own cooking shows. It's not, also, our thumbnail style. Right now everybody's copying Mr. Beast's thumbnail styles, but back in, 2018, 2019, 2020, the thumbnail style that we use became very popular, and never once were we upset or offended that people were copying us or ripping us off or whatever. No, I was flattered that we had inspired anybody with what we were doing. And that's what's going on here. I'm not copying that sandwich. I'm making a very different sandwich, but I was inspired by it. I'm taking away elements from it. That is the beauty of human creation. I was certain I was going to arrive at a really cool philosophical point. Instead, I just kind of stated the obvious. So that's the right size bowl. No, it's not. Have any other bowls? Here. That's better. Brought over a bunch of these fun little mise cups. Those are great to have, just so you can transport ingredients easily, as long as they fit. Whether it's garbage or ingredients, you can use the bench scraper to just kind of guide them right off the table into your bowl. Easy as that. So let's fry these shallots. Something I learned the hard way in an early episode of binging, specifically the moist maker episode from Friends, is that you don't want to get hot oil going and then drop these onions in. You're going to have a bad time. That will do nicely. There we go. So in the moist maker episode, of binging where I recreated the moist maker from Friends. I made a full Thanksgiving dinner. I made these Kenji's crispy fried shallots here, and I heated up the oil to deep fry them and was surprised that when I dropped in the onions that it completely overflowed and made a huge mess. I'm hoping that I fixed that technique in the actual voiceover. I'm pretty sure I did. But the reason for that is that onions are full of moisture. Shallots, onions, whatever, full of moisture. So you add moisture to hot oil. What happens? That you never want to add water to hot oil. That's how you hurt yourself and others. So I'm just putting these in the pan and adding enough oil just to cover them up. And I'm being generous with it because this oil is not going to go to waste. It's just vegetable oil. You don't want to use olive oil here necessarily unless you use Graza's sizzle oil because that's good for high temperatures. You don't want to use extra virgin olive oil here because you will push the oil to high temperature, which will cause it to become bitter or acrid, which isn't great. So we're just combining these cold, and then we're bringing them up to a nice bubble and frying them until they are nice and golden brown and crisp. It's a pretty foolproof, pretty easy recipe. Very, very ingenious, just like most of the stuff Kenji does. There we go. All right. Let's see if there's any other prep we can work on while that comes up to temp. We can grate our cheese. That's a good idea. It's one thing I do have to go over to the fridge for. Now, I was a little stuck on what cheese to use. I have 3 options here. Maybe I'll make a mix of all 3. That'd be interesting. Oh, it's the garlic. Okay, I was like, something smells cooked already. That can't be right. It's the garlic. I have 3 options here. I have some smoked gouda, which I think would be really nice, but I'm worried it might be too strong a flavor. Smoked gouda, the smoke flavor is really, really strong. Then I have gruyere, which this to me is like the steakhouse cheese. It's like the cheese that steakhouse. And then I also have Comte, which is, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've had any. It's like a more mild gruyere. I think what I'm going to do is a mixture of these two. I think I'm going to do half Comte, half smoked gouda, and we'll save the gruyere for another food. There we go. Got some Parmesan in there as well that I'm going to need for the cream spinach. And as I mentioned, I got my tools assembled and ready and stuff, which is so rare for me. You can see that our shallots are just starting to bubble here. You can't see it on the close-up, but on the wide you should be able to see it. Yeah. We want to get these up to a solid bubble. Like, this isn't a gentle simmer. We want these to fry. But we also don't want it to go too hard either because we want them to brown relatively slowly so they don't burn. Next up, we are grating our cheese. We're always grating our own, right? Because it's better. If you're not familiar with, the most YouTubers and TikTokers and chefs in general's diatribe against pre-grated cheese, it's that it's generally coated in anticoagulants, usually potato starch, something like that, to prevent the shreds from sticking together. And that can have a detrimental effect on whatever it is you're making. It can cause the cheese to melt in an ugly way where the shreds retain their shape, kind of. If you've ever made late night stoned nachos with shredded cheese and you just threw it in the toaster oven or whatever, and it came out and all the shreds were still the same shape, that's what's going on. Let's listen to this sizzle. Nice. But yeah, that's going to yield both nice crispy fried shallots, but also shallot oil. All that oil, when we drain it out, is going to have plenty of future uses. I'm trimming off the rinds here Those are just snacks for me. Grating it right in with the Comte, just so everybody's pre-mingled, ready to go. Wow, the shredder is great. But it's a good shredder. I've definitely mangled my hands on that thing because it's freaking sharp. There we go. That's another thing that the bench is great for. Like, it's really hard to get little shreds of cheese off of a bench like that. So the bench scraper just lets you, well, live up to its name and bench scrape it. See, when you try to get it off with your hands, you end up just making these little rolls that stick to the table. There we go. There's our cheese. We're still quite a distance from sandwich time, and I don't want this to get all oily and room temp. That's fine. These are pretty well-aged cheeses. They're probably cool to hang out at room temp for a while. Uh-oh. I wasn't watching, and look what happened. I burned a couple of my shallots, some of the ones around the edges. See? Let me get some tongs or something. Yeah, see these guys towards the edges? They caught a lot more heat than everybody else, so they burned. So, careful of that. What I'm probably gonna do is, I do have this guy, which is basically just a fine mesh skimmer that I'll be able to get these guys out with. Let's make sure that we're stirring these and making sure that they're getting evenly cooked so that that doesn't happen again. I don't feel like fishing out all, well, I guess I could do it. I'm gonna fish out the, this is a, an ice, set of ice tongs. Wholly inappropriate for what I'm doing right now, but all I could reach for and grab at that moment. I'm only pulling these out because by the time the rest are cooked, they will be burned. Anybody else? Ooh, yeah, see this guy's already pretty much burned. So they're gonna be harder to fish out later when everybody's nicely browned. Might as well get them now. There's a couple other small guys in there. I'm not gonna worry about them. We're looking good. I have a paper towel lined plate here ready to catch the shallots, and then I'm going to save that oil and repurpose it for, it's great in anything. You can use it in cooking because it has some particulate in it, but it's not really going to burn. It's great for salad dressing. It's great for anything you can imagine that would would shallots taste good in this? There you go. Question asked and answered. Basically, the reason that these have, like, you'd think that these would brown almost instantly, but it's because of all the moisture in them. All the liquid needs to cook out before it can brown. It's the same issue that you can run into with steaks if you have too much moisture on the exterior. Speaking of which, why don't we check on our steak? See what's happening there. Okay, it hasn't started to happen quite yet because I don't think enough time has passed. But you can see that the exterior is becoming glistening. I don't know if you can see that, but it's becoming reflective because it does have moisture being drawn to the exterior. You don't see any of that salt anymore. You just see pepper. So you can see it on A cam. You can see how glistening that is. It's probably going to get it even wetter over the next few minutes, and then it's going to dry back out. Pretty cool thing. Science. I wish I understood it. Make sure you're stirring these because, as we just discovered, the ones towards the outside are going to brown faster. Oh, it's so nice to put your phone on Do Not Disturb. That's why I have the, you know, this function button. I don't know what Apple calls it, but this button on the side that you can set to have any function. That's what mine does. It puts in Do Not Disturb. I immediately feel a sense of relief when my phone goes into Do Not Disturb. It's not because I don't like people, but it's because I in this day and age, you feel a pressure to be available to everyone at all times. And I understand if you're parents with young kids and you need to be available at all times in case of emergency. But humanity got by just fine in 1970 and every year before that when there was no option. The idea of driving home from work or going out to the store and being unreachable, it sounds like insane now. It sounds post-apocalyptic. But that's the vast majority of human history. There'd be vast swaths of time in which no one could get a hold of you. And I think that psychologically we kind of need that. To be connected all the time means feeling the need to perform at all times. When I was talking about being performative last week, I don't mean perform like on stage. I mean be what the other person needs. And in that process, you lose what you need. And I feel like we're all very out of touch with what we need as individuals because we're so constantly a part of everybody else's story. And if that doesn't make sense, forgive me. I'm trying to cook and listen to music and host and try to wax poetic about mindfulness. But I encourage you to try it out. One thing I did last summer that I cannot wait to do again was I left my house without my phone. I went on a long walk with no phone. Did that just like make your blood run cold? Because it was terrifying at first. But then I realized, there's probably no emergency that can't wait a couple hours. I made sure that, it's not like I had loved ones waiting to go into surgery or anything. Like it was a chill day. And here we go. Sorry, I'm going to shut up for a second because I'm going to pull these onions out. They are looking good and done. Yeah, buddy. Let's yank these out. Kill the heat just to prevent any further cooking. There we go. They're not going to look crisp because they're still oil logged. As you can see, we only burned a couple and I can pick them out pretty easy. Let's get everybody. It feels a little silly with this big skimmer, but got him. This is the show where you're going to see me not being very efficient or, like hack ready, shortcut, whatever. This is the show where you're going to see what it's like when I just cook on my own, which is to say disorganized, figuring out as we go along. I feel like this is what cooking is like for most people. This is the way that it's been for me my entire life. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you feel the need to measure yourself against Gordon Ramsay, and that's just unfair. So you can see that I've got these draining on paper towels. I'm going to repurpose that shallot oil. And as you touch them, you can feel them start to harden up, to crisp up. So just be patient. By the time that they're cooled off, they're going to be nice and crunchy. That's going to be a great topping for this steak sandwich. That's going to be awesome. There we go. So we grated our cheeses. We're halfway done, people. We're an hour deep. Whatever, last time it was an hour and a half and I only made 2 plates of pasta. This is more involved, so that's fine. All right, now let's make the creamed spinach. What time did the garlic went in? Garlic went in at 4 o'clock, it's 4:45. Yeah, so yeah, we'll make the creamed spinach. By the time we're done with that, garlic will come out and then we're ready to make steak. Let's go. So last fridge thing I have to get is the spinach. And you'll notice that I'm not using fresh spinach. That's because it's annoying, I think. Just because the thing that's annoying to me about it when you're making any kind of like sauteed spinach or creamed spinach like this is that there's garlic and shallots in there. They need to be cooked first before the spinach gets added. So you cook them, you sweat them, you get them, a little caramelized, then you add all the spinach, and the spinach is like this, and then by the time it cooks down, it's like this. And it shrinks by like a factor of 10. And during that time, your garlic and your shallots are at risk of burning. So it's annoying, and I don't like it. So instead, I'm going to use frozen spinach because especially in cream spinach where it's just getting, cooked down to a paste anyway, why not? Clear my station a little bit here. And I'm going to use some of that shallot oil. Again, why not? So I have one, I think it was a 10-ounce package of frozen spinach that I have thawed in the microwave. And, I am willing to bet you won't be able to tell the difference between that and fresh spinach in a creamed spinach medium. I don't know your palate and just how good it is, but it'd have to be pretty damn good to pick up that difference. I know mine isn't that good. That's one thing I do like about the ranking show, though, is that like I've definitely looked like a fool a couple times, but for the most part, it's confirmed to me that okay, I do have a decent palate. I've been able to pick out things that taste good and things that are high quality and things that are low quality, for the most part, with some glaring exceptions. But if you know me, if you know my show, that sounds exactly right. So for this application, I'm going to finely mince the shallot. Actually, I'm going to use a different knife. I love the cleft knife, but for finely mincing, it's a little big. I want something smaller that I can be a little more precise with. Let's try to exercise some proper knife technique. Bunch of small cuts down the length of the shallot, like that. And then one cut lengthwise through the center, like that. Not holding the shallot that way, holding it on the top, not the way I just did. I was holding it like this, like a dingus. Don't do that. That's how you hurt yourself. And then finely mince. Stop that. Yeah, so one, small, finely minced shallot. Here, I'll use that rattling cup, put him to good use. There we go. And I want some garlic too. And I have a bunch of garlic here, pre-peeled, just because, not pre-peeled at the grocery store. Don't get that. Alvin told me that apparently it's pretty unethical, prison labor and just pretty rough conditions and people who are forced to pre-peel garlic. So stay away from that. And it's pretty easy to peel garlic. I tried the old shake trick in a metal container. I didn't do that here because, well, it was very loud and I didn't want to wake you from a sound sleep. But I'm not even gonna chop this, am I? Am I? Yeah, I'll chop it. Why not? I was gonna grate it, but I don't need it to be that intense. Basically, same principle here on a much smaller scale. Definitely not the most efficient way to peel garlic, but or chopped garlic, but it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and continue to forgive myself because I'm still kind of learning the ropes of this show, this new show. There we go. Throw another meat cup in there. There we go. There we are. Okay, let's head over to the stovetop. And I'm going to utilize this, which the Babish non-stick cookware is available now on Amazon. It's inexpensive, it's hardy, it's oven safe to 500 degrees, which means it's also sear safe, and it's got these new spouted edges, which make it easier to pour. It's a great pan. You know, I wanted to use that. I'm gonna use butter. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna use the shallot oil just because you need to make a kind of de facto roux to thicken the cream sauce. So butter is generally just better for that. You can definitely make a roux with oil, obviously. Not obviously, but you can. And, but, you know, cream spinach, that feels like butter territory, if you ask me. So I got some unsalted butter here. I just need a butter knife. And let's do like, I don't know, let's do 2 tablespoons. So nice cube. Come on, there we go. Making me look bad. All right, is that a big enough pan? Yeah. Gonna set that up over medium heat. Go to the fridge where I have some half and half. I never buy half and half because I never use half and half. I either use cream or use milk. And most cream spinach recipes use a mixture of milk and heavy cream. So voila, here we go. So we're gonna saute the shallot and the garlic. Then we're gonna add some flour. That's why I say de facto roux, because a fun cheat if you don't want to make a roux to incorporate flour into sauce is to use an onion or a shallot or something like this, something small pieces of vegetables that when you add the flour, it turns into a paste that kind of coats the vegetables. And then when you add the liquid, it kind of leaches off the vegetables and into the liquid and thickens it without lumps. So it's a nice trick. I'm not even going to say it's a trick. It's more of a technique that you use for specific recipes. You couldn't do that to make like a, you know, a Mornay sauce or something. What else goes in cream spinach? I'm going with no recipe on everything today. Nutmeg, for sure. We're definitely using some freshly grated nutmeg. If you don't know my policy on nutmeg and it being freshly grated, well, let me proselytize for a second. Freshly grated nutmeg, if you haven't tried it, versus, let's see if I can go down here without the camera losing me. All I have to do is not look at what I'm grabbing, which is a great idea when you're grabbing for kitchen tools. Freshly grated nutmeg just tastes entire worlds, oceans. Worlds are bigger than oceans. It tastes way better than pre-ground. There's just so much more florality to it and nuttier. It's more warming. It's a wonderful spice when it's freshly grated, more than almost any other spice. And if you're gonna grate any spice, start there. Let's get another rubber spat without going down too far. There we go. I want to make sure I get all the shallots out. Too big a spat. We're just going to sweat these for 1 to 3 minutes, add the garlic. The usual routine. We don't want any browning. This is this feels like the procedure for like 99% of onion and garlic based stuff. If you're making red sauce, if you're making cream spinach, you sweat the onion element for 1 to 3 minutes until it's just starting to get a little color, turn a little translucent. You can see that. it again. Doesn't that look nice? And that's when you add the garlic. Continue to cook for 30 seconds until you smell the garlic. It's usually pretty instant, so be patient. 30 seconds. There we go. And I'm going to add about a cup of liquid, which means I want to add about a tablespoon of flour. I don't have a tablespoon handy, so we're going to eyeball. And generally best practice not to use metal utensils. These are very hardy nonstick pans, but still not a great idea to do that. So roughly a tablespoon. And that's going to turn into a paste. There we go. Beautiful. And it's going to kind of coat our veg. So that now, when we add roughly a cup of our half and half, should not form any lumps. Should just straight up thicken things. There we go. Nice, nice, nice. Now I'm going to grate in some freshly grated nutmeg, just to make sure that that is deeply imbued into the sauce. And you can see that the sauce is thickening. You can see that these bubbles down here at the end, it's already thick. Now it's about the consistency of heavy cream. So it is thickening. I always justify my pans too far back. They always get really hot up front. I gotta center them. There we go, nice and centered. Okay. Just clear my station a little bit while that comes up to a simmer. Oh, it smells good. Man, it smells good. And let's get our spinach in there. Whoop. Let's do it towards you, like a cooking show. And if this is fresh spinach, you'd want to saute it first before adding it to the... Sorry, you'd want to saute it first before adding the cream. But because this was frozen spinach, it's not been cooked, but I mean, in the defrosting in the microwave and in the process of being frozen, it's sort of been cooked. So it's really just got to be cooked for a little bit in here. You could simmer this anywhere from, you could probably simmer this for at least 10 minutes and anywhere up to an hour, I think. You'd be fine. Let's get all that stuff in there. There we go. That's already starting to look like cream spinach. But let's let it cook for a tick. We'll probably let it cook for the whole time that we're preparing our steak and bread. Okay, let's clear off the station a little bit. Why don't we check on our chilies? That's a good idea. I'm gonna put this half and half back in the fridge. But real quick, I also want to say thank you so much to everybody who watched the first episode. I know that this is not what is popular on YouTube right now. In fact, it's one of my motivators for making this show, is that it feels like everything on this and other social and media platforms is working really hard to get and keep your attention. It's screaming at you with spectacle and with, attention-grabbing graphics and thumbnails and intros and all this stuff. It's one of the reasons movie trailers have been ruined. Like that thing now where they show the best parts of the trailer in the first 5 seconds and then they start the movie trailer. I hate that. And it's because audience retention improves if you hook them in the first couple seconds. So that's why that started happening. And I wanted to try to make something the antidote to that, because I feel like, again, just like being overconnected, being overstimulated in things, everything around you constantly vying for your attention, it's not healthy, and it's also, it just kind of reduces appreciation for life as a whole. The more time that I find to be quiet and to be away from screens and phones and all that stuff, the more I am able to enjoy simpler things that I never would have been able to enjoy when I was a younger person, or when as little as 2 years ago. So I wanted to create a place on YouTube where you could slow down a little bit. And I'm really grateful to everybody that watched and who immediately saw that that's what I was trying to do. The comments were, I was so excited to get down here and shoot another one of these as soon as I started seeing the comments and seeing everybody understand exactly what the show is for, and wanting to see more of it, and calling out what they want to see done differently. And you know, it's an amazing conversation that we get to have as a creator and as a viewer. We get to have a back and forth, a dialogue that's almost instantaneous. That episode came out on Tuesday. It's now Friday, and this episode will come out in a few days. Like there's an almost instant feedback system here, where we can work together to make something that I love making and that you love watching. That's incredible. All right, so let's turn the heat way down. I'm gonna give it a little initial seasoning. A little more than that, probably about a teaspoon kosher salt. Hit it with some freshly ground pepper too. Let's give it a taste. Now that's a fun food to plop in the pan. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Okay, let's give it a taste. Let's see what we got going on here. I know I'm using a metal spoon and a non-stick, but it can take it. Okay. Needs more fat, so it needs more half and half. More salt. What else does that need? I mean, it's quite good. It's cream spinach. It tastes like cream spinach to me. But it needs more salt, it needs more fat. So let's do that in the form of half and half. The sauce is looking a little thin anyway, so I think we cooked it down a little bit too far. That's okay. And some more salt. Like that much more. There we go. Yeah, the idea of using cream spinach as a condiment, man, what a notion. I'm gonna get this out of the way because it's hot and I'm not using it. And then this can go on the back burner, so to speak, even though it's really the side burner. And I'm gonna keep that under low heat, and I'm just gonna cook it down. I'm gonna keep this half and half out here because I'm just gonna keep cooking it. If it gets too thick, I'll add a little more half and half. Oh, cheese, that's what it needs, duh. What am I thinking? Well, maybe I'll add that later. It's not gonna break, but I'll add that at the end. There's no need to add that now. But remind me, would you? Don't let me forget. That needs cheese. Okay. Last up, the steak. I don't want to use that pan. I got it out special for this, and now I don't want to use it. Yes, I do. It's going to be good for, this is going to be good for toasting the bread. Speaking of which, bread. Let's talk bread. This was my front runner this morning. I went grocery shopping and just picked a couple options. Whatever I don't use, I'll use to make breadcrumbs. But this guy, I mean, okay, no. As I take it out and look at it, that's the one. Look at the bubbles on that. It's beautiful. It's not okay. No, it's perfect. We got to do that. Which one looks prettier? Oh, they both look lovely. This guy's got a little heavier bubble structure though, so we'll go with. So as far as I know, this at the grocery store, this was under cubano bread, but it's not cubano bread. There's no way this is cubano bread. I don't know what this is. So if you know what this is, shout it out. Yeah, I've never seen this before, so I'm stoked to try this. I'm not going to use a bread knife, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to try just using a nice, for the sake of evenness, I'm going to use a rimmed baking sheet. A quarter sheet. Okay, this is going to be tricky, Rover. You got me? You're with me. Okay. All right. This is one of my favorite hacks. Well, it needs to be raised up a little bit. And my favorite thing to do that with is a trivet. A little too high. Okay. We need something half the thickness of this. What about my journal? Actually, that probably would work, wouldn't it? Let's use the very journal in which I sketched the sandwich. Oh, how thematically delightful. Okay. I'm using this quarter sheet as a sort of template to cut the bread. Obviously, you could just go like this and roll, but I'm pretty bad at that, if I'm being honest. And especially because I'm not using a bread knife. Like I said, I'm using a straight edge knife. This is the Babish Super Slicer. And the reason I'm doing that, I'll show you once this guy's opened up. Jeez, that is a robust crust. Let's go. Got my journal a little crummy, but that's a small price to pay. That's the reason I'm using a straight edge knife, is that with a delicate bread, and especially if you're pan frying, like I'm gonna be toasting this in a pan. If you're grilling or if you're broiling, doesn't matter. But if you're pan frying, by using a straight edge knife, I'm showing you in the close-up cam here, you can see it's perfectly flat. I have nothing but utterly flat surface area here that can make perfect contact with the pan. Here, I'll do it on this camera as well so you can see, just in case that didn't work. You can see there's no like little dog ears. If you used a bread knife, you'd have a roughed up texture here, which can be nice. But if you're frying on a flat surface like a skillet, you need a flat surface that it can make maximum contact with. So that's why I'm doing that. Until I toast it, I'm storing it cut side down on the thing that I sliced it in. That makes sense. Get this out of the way. And how about we check on our chilies now? Let's give these a little taste test. It has been, I think, about 40 minutes. Let's take a look. Well, they smell fan-freaking-tastic. What do we got? Oh, baby. Okay. Wow, those are freaking spicy. I really don't want to cough because I don't want to wake you up. Oh, Nikes, that's spicy. Okay. God, those are hot. Jesus. Those are really hot. It's like the hottest jalapeno I've ever had, basically. But they're delicious. The honey and the pickling, so you get this real, it's almost like bread and butter jalapenos, where it's a very, very sweet pickling liquid. And honey is such a unique form of sweetness. Oh, it's nice. They're hot. They're freaking hot. But they're also freaking good. So, all right, let's sieve those out, I guess. I'm not going to be saving that pickling liquid because I don't know what else to do with it. I could pickle other stuff. I don't have anything else to pickle. Well, now I feel bad. Should I save it? I'll save it. Fine. You win. Well, that way I can sieve it over here too. That actually thematically makes more sense from a cooking show perspective. See what our garlic ended up looking like too. Let's see if it turned that funky blue. Jesus. Oh God. I just caught it in my nose. Whew. Hot nasty, as they say, as the kids say. I wish the kids didn't say that. I wish kids didn't say bruh so much. It really bums me out when I'm walking down the street and I hear like a 10-year-old kid saying bruh. Ugh. That wasn't the chilies, that was the idea of the bruh. Huh, yeah, the garlic did not discolor the way that it often can. That's interesting. I don't know why that is. Let me get all those mustard seeds out of there. Rover. I don't want it to seem like I have a problematic relationship with Rover. It's all love. It's brotherly love, I'd call it. Which is, you know, it's rough. Let's try this out. I'm so relieved to know that cheese is going in there because I was like, God, what does this need? I know it needs something. What is it? And it's cheese. Like, it's great, and the cheese is going to bring it across the finish line. Okay, so how are we looking? Made the cream spinach. Yeah, we're ready to sear a steak and carve and serve. It's also been a little over an hour since we put the garlic in the oven, so that's ready to come out. Let's take a peek at that. Wow, it turns out if you organize a little bit before one of these shoots, things go so much easier. Watch, this is jet black or something, after I just said like, oh, things are working out. Wah, wah. You might be wondering why I'm touching aluminum foil that was just in a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven. It's because aluminum foil cools off almost instantly. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. Uh-oh. That's gonna be good. And I still don't really know. I think I'm gonna toast the bread. I'm gonna hit it with olive oil and toast it. And I think I'm just gonna rub this on the bread. Okay, so then the question becomes, how are we gonna do the cheese? Like, am I going to assemble the sandwich and then am I gonna broil it? Or am I gonna do the TikTok thing and torch it? I'm normally not a fan of torching literally anything except for like creme brulee, anything. That's about the only thing I'll ever want to torch personally. But it kind of makes sense in this application because everything else is already going to be toasted in one form or another. The steak is going to be seared. The bread is going to be griddled. Everything's going to be cooked except the cheese. And the only way to melt the cheese is with residual heat from the sandwich, which there's not going to be that much of. It's not a ripping hot sandwich. Or to sprinkle the cheese on and then throw the whole thing under the broiler, which then we could overcook the steak. So I'm inclined to do that because I could just throw the cheese on there, torch it, top it up, wrap it, let it steep for 5 minutes just to soften up the bread and continue to melt the cheese and everything, and no harm, no foul. Then I also get torch noises, which, gotta love that. I'm gonna get a quick shot of me flipping this spinach without talking so that we have nice audio of it. Beautiful. Move this back over to the main burner so you can see what I'm doing. probably about 2 ounces worth of cheese. 1.5, 2 ounces. We'll start there. I foresee very low possibility of this being, it's too cheesy. In fact, that looks almost unchanged, so let's see what happens here. Oh, it needs more, but that is what it needed. Oh man. Oh God, that's good. Why was that the first time I've ever seen this used as a condiment? It's brilliant. I'm sure other people have done it, but we should be shouting it from the rooftops, people. It's a grand innovation. That was pretty cool. I can't just be cool, I have to make an ass out of myself. Yes. Okay. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this sandwich is going to be pretty melty and gooey. I don't even know how much cheese it's going to need. I'm going to hit it with cheese, don't you worry. But I don't know how much it needs. Okay, so move this back over the side burner. And let's get the party started over here. Now, we are not using extra virgin olive oil for this application. We need to sear this steak. We need to get some beautiful steak noises and a nice deep brown crust, which means high heat, which means high smoke point oil, which means vegetable canola, other neutral flavored oil. I'm gonna spread it around, both because this cast iron's looking pretty thirsty, but also because, let me spread it around with a paper towel here. Yeah. We obviously don't need all of it to be oiled, but the pan was looking thirsty, so that's going to help season it. Okay, so what do we have? We have our chilies. We have those. We have let's check on our onions, see what these are looking like. Oh yeah, nice and crunchy. Hear that? I'll put it right in there in the mic. Those are going to add crunch, a ton of flavor too. Yeah. The sandwich is going to be sick. Sorry. But the sandwich is going to be nuts. All right, let's check on our steak as well. Yep. I really doubt you're going to be able to tell on camera, but it is drier looking now than it was before. Most assuredly less shiny and slick looking. And that's because the water has been reabsorbed, or the liquid has been reabsorbed back into the steak, which means that it's been properly dry brined. All that to be said, we still want it to be as dry as possible when it hits the pan. So I am going to paper towel it a little bit, but look, nothing. There's nothing there. Zero moisture. What's this little nubbin that wants to fall off here? I feel like that's going to get in the way. I'll cook it up as a little chef snack, but I feel like that's going to hamper things. So now to preheat the pan, here's another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this oven glove because the handle of this pan gets annoyingly hot. Must be because it's not a Babish pan. And I'm going to heat this to the point where there are wisps of smoke coming off of it, even a fair amount of smoke coming off of it, because we want to blast this steak with as much heat as possible. It's a thick steak. It is not the thickest steak in the world, which means that I think we can do the whole thing in the pan. I don't think we have to, reverse sear or forward sear or finish in the oven or anything like that. I think we can just do it straight up in the pan. But it also does mean that we could run the risk of overcooking it if we don't put a crust on it fast. So that's why we're gonna get this pan ripping hot, general best practice. And I'm seeing wisps of smoke, but I'm not doing anything yet. And I'll tell you why. It's because cast iron, it holds on to heat very evenly, but when you initially heat it, especially with high heat, I've only got it over a medium flame right now. And that's because I want to very thoroughly preheat it, not quickly. If you do it quickly, you might end up with hot spots. If you do it slowly, more thoroughly, then it's going to absorb that heat, it's going to disseminate it, and the whole thing's going to be more properly preheated. Now, hopefully on B-cam you can see the little wisps of smoke. I'm going to stand behind it. Oh yeah, you can see that. Oh man. Looking good. Hit it with a little bit more oil. And let's get things cooking. This is chef weight. You could use a heavy pan or anything you want, but I'm putting a chef weight down that ensures more even contact with the bottom of the pan. So you're getting a better, more even crust. Really press it down on there. Now I'm cranking the heat up to medium-high because it's going to have lost a lot of heat from this cold steak being put down on it. I know it's not cold, we've had it out at room temperature for more than an hour, but comparatively it's cold. I gotta put this here, otherwise I'm gonna forget, I'm gonna burn my hand. I'm tilting the pan because all the oil's pooling in the back, and I wanna get it under the steak. So I think it's almost time to flip because I'm seeing gray crawl up the side of the steak. That didn't sound very appetizing, but you know what I mean. Nope, not quite. I could use a little more love on that side. Just gonna cook my little chef snack. Let's take a look. I can't see. Whoops. Little patchy, a little uneven, not a problem. We can remedy that by doing a couple things. By turning the steak and by really getting it, really dipping it in this fat. Really pressing it down. And if anything, I'd rather undercook this steak than overcook it because you can't go back from overcooking. But if I undercook it and I sliced into it and I was like, ah, it's undercooked, I could broil it real quick. I could griddle it, and you know, it would take it the rest of the way, no problem. It's kind of like how Peter Luger does it. Okay, let's try again. looks pretty mean. You know what I'm going to do? This little guy is going to be an oil mop. It's almost like butter basting. Just hitting it with hot oil. That's going to be a tasty little nibble. Just because this is a cooking show, I might temp it just to see where we're at. Yeah, we're 80 degrees. Quite a ways. See how this side's looking? Definitely browning a little more evenly. So that might be our presentation side. A little chef snack's probably ready to go. Let that rest. All right. Temp probe says that's not anywhere near done, but I honestly don't believe it. Like, that's been on there for quite a while and it's not the thickest steak in the world. So I'm taking it off and I'm resting it. And just to be safe, I'm gonna wrap it in aluminum foil, which will help it over the line. And yeah, again, worst case, we can always boil it, finish it off that way. Now, this cream spinach is about as dry as it's gonna get, and I know that doesn't sound great, but I want it pretty dry because I don't want this to be like a drippy sandwich because of the really wet cream spinach. Now, we have this ripping hot pan. It's all full of delicious beef fat. Like, there's so much more fat in that pan than what we started out with. It's because it's the fat that's rendered out of the steak. Far be it from me to waste that. Really scoop these guys around. Mop all that. Oh, whoa. Did you see that? Make sure it gets evenly fatted up. I see some bald spots, so just hit those with some graza. A little extra fat. Not gonna hurt nobody. Unless, you know, you have a coronary issue. There we go. Toast that up. Press it down a little bit. Could use chef weights here, but pressing the bread down in from the center to make sure that the soft bit is really getting in contact with the pan. nice. That's all just beef fat. Okay. These are pretty much good to go. Got a nice crust on those. Leave them there to just toast for another second. Get my station set up here. I'm gonna poke the steak too, see where it's at temp-wise. Oh yeah, 130. Okay, so we have our nicely griddled bread here. All right, so I'm gonna start with the garlic. And I'm gonna scoop the garlic directly out. I know that it's the cool thing to squeeze it like a big old pimple, but you end up wasting a lot of garlic doing that. It looks cool, but you know, so do drugs, but they're not. I'm kidding. They are. I'm kidding. I don't know. Yeah, just gonna scoop these guys directly out onto the bread. Half on each. Is that all of them? There we go. There we are. Now let's just mash these guys down. Mash that right onto the bread. About as good a fate as I could have asked for these things, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. I am now. I'm going to borrow half of one of these for right here, because it's a little bald. Doesn't have that. Don't want to end up like me. Bald joke. Nice even spread. Go. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna lay down the. No, I'm gonna top the steak with the pickled chilies and the crunchy onions. I'm gonna put down a base of the creamed spinach. That's what I'm gonna do. Don't want it to really glop out or make the sandwich too slippery, so I'm going to kind of try to treat it like a condiment. Just spread a nice generous layer on. Should I do it top and bottom? Uh-oh. Should I do it top and bottom? Oh, I don't know. I don't want to make things too slippery. I also don't want to make things too green. That's enough. That's a fair amount. You'll definitely taste it. Okay, steak needs like, oh, I guess it doesn't really need any more time. It's good. Actually, so many things are going on top of the steak, the cheese and all. I think I will put chilies down underneath. Well, folks, we got ourselves another 2-hour episode. How about that? All right, might as well not skip those shallots, right? Throw some of those down, the really thinly sliced ones. Those will be a nice little mouth surprise, as Andy Dwyer would put it. Good stuff. That looks great. Loving that color contrast. All right. Just want to make sure that you get a little bit of chili in every bite, because they were really, really hot on their own. But as part of an ensemble, they're going to work very well, I think. Okay. Now, let's carve our steak. It's gonna be a lot more than I need. So I'm just gonna pick the best bits. Ooh, we got some nice juices in there too. Okay. Here we go. There's gonna be juice loss because I think I moved a little too fast. Probably could have used a little more rest, but here we are. I want to carve this on the close-up. Okay, I'm gonna have to reset a little bit, but I want to be able to get a nice shot of this. There we go. All right, so there's also a method to the madness in carving it as well, because the fibers of the meat right now are standing up at a 90-degree angle. And in a sandwich, you don't want to have to chew through those. If I just cut straight down and then put those slices on, then we're working against the grain of the steak. So if I cut like this on a bias, very much across those grains, it's gonna be a lot more tender and a lot easier to eat, sandwich-wise. And we're gonna cut it nice and thin. You see it's a little overcooked, but it's not that bad. Bias. Get plenty of this fat. None of the connective tissue though. This is where it's at though. This is the special bit. Like that's the cap, plenty good and tender and lovely, but I'm sorry, this is the eye round, and then this is the cap. The cap is just fat. And there's this like channel of fat running through it here. So I'm gonna do a little bit of both. So we get a variety of textures and fat contents, everything in every bite. Beautiful. Let's try some. Damn, that's good. All right. This guy got a little thick, so he's going to be my snack later. I'm just going to throw these guys back on their plate, toss them in their juices a little bit. Get them nice and juicy. And then just scatter this sucker. All right, I don't want any huge hunks of fat, but I like this right here. That's gonna be a nice little addition. Actually, why don't we top with those? We'll start with the bigger pieces for like structural integrity. And I'm gonna put those on a bias. Again, the more we mix up the directionality of stuff, the easier it's going to be to eat. The directionality of the grain specifically, I mean. Oh man, that looks so freaking good. I gotta take a picture with my phone before I top it up because it's just so pretty. Oh wow, these are perfectly sized. All these bits. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, let me take a picture of that quick. iPhone doesn't know what to do with studio lighting. I won't blame it, that's fine. I put down all the parts, all the slices of the eye round, and now I'm going to scatter the cap over top because that's where all the fat and flavor is. Don't get me wrong, the eye is plenty flavorful too, but the cap is just like, whew, where did this stuff come from? I know if this were TikTok, this would be going, but that's not what kind of show this is. Try to move the bigger pieces of fat. Okay. That seems pretty good. Not that much steak. I want like one more piece to put on the end there. Just give me one more piece. So much fat in this steak. There we go. Little piece. Okay. Now, So now I'm topping it with the crispy shallots. Oh man, come on. Give me a break. Dude, this is gonna be so good. Every element of this is so good. It's kind of like, it's so different from pasta alla olio, because pasta alla olio, every element doesn't work on its own. But this, every element works on its own, and now they're all just gonna play so nice together. As many onions as I can freaking fit on there. Let's go nuts. It's our one shot. There we go. And now cheese. Okay, there we go. Oh man, I'm so freaking happy with the way this came out. I am thrilled, I am over the moon. And I want to pour all the steak juices all over it. I know that's what, again, what they would do with TikTok, but it's just gonna make it too drippy. I don't like a sandwich that's that drippy. But what I do wish I did before I put the onions on, I wanted to hit the steak with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, just a little bit, just to shine things up. There we go. All right, now we have our grated Comte and smoked gouda. Toss on here. Really pack it on there because I need a nice flat layer. I almost wish I had slices instead of these shreds, but hindsight is 20/20. All right, let's get into it, shall we? I hope you're listening along with me on the playlist, because we just hit the most perfect song for this. It's just very emotional, and I feel kind of emotional right now because I'm so happy with the way this came out. I don't know about you guys, but when I make food that I'm proud of, I feel feelings. I feel a lot about it. Top it up. Okay. I am worried about that cheese not being fully melted through, so I am tempted to take the whole thing, wrap it up, and throw it. Yeah, I mean, okay, you know what? I actually have a better idea. All the cheese just stuck to the top bun. I'm just going to melt it from the bottom. Might torch a couple of the onions, but small price to pay. Oh, that'll do it. Whoomp. There we go. Okay. Who else is ready to eat? All right, let's get a cross section going, shall we? Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. Well, folks, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you made this yourself, I hope it came out well. Let's see what it tastes like, shall we? Home run is what I'm trying to say. Oh man. Dude. That is so good. I mean, I know this is a cooking show and that I'm going to say that my food's good. I mean, that's what we're doing here, but that is so good. The flavors are so balanced. The chilies are spicy. That is a spicy sandwich, but it's not overwhelming. On their own, too much. In the sandwich, they're a beautiful voice in the choir. That cream spinach, I'm putting cream spinach on all my sandwiches from now on. That's an incredible condiment. It's cheesy, creamy, spiced, garlicky, oniony, spinachy. It's incredible. I'm trying not to show teeth because I'm worried it's all up in my teeth right now. I think I was right going with half smoked Gouda, half Comte, because the cheese is, the flavor's there, but I don't want it to overwhelm. I don't want it to take front, I don't want it to be front and center. And that's exactly where it's at, because the Comte has a nice funk to it and the Gouda has a nice smoke to it. And each one is just very nice and subtle and in the background. And the onions, like you got the crunch and you got so much flavor from those, so much rich, savory, just oniony flavor. Shallots, not onions. And then the steak. The steak's still the star of the show. It's one of my big complaints with steak sandwiches is that the steak tends to get lost. Most of the blue cheese and the balsamic onions and the whatever else people put on the steak sandwiches, arugula, all this stuff. And these all just serve to complement one another. Oh, man. It's a messy one to eat on camera. Oh. Okay. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining me for the second episode of the Babish Cook-Along. I hope that you took home some techniques that you might try yourself, or that you made some delicious food, or that it was just a relaxing thing to have on in the background if you've had a long day or you're trying to get some sleep. Thank you for cooking with me, and keep cooking. I will if you will, and I mean that. And go easy on yourself. Boy, it's smoky in here.